Not just back in time, but back to a place where the earth itself held secrets in its belly. Back to when the Mississippi River Valley cradled the largest civilization north of Mexico. Back to Cahokia around the year Ichenling Wushirsi, where yes, you, are about to live a life you never imagined. You are a young woman named Evening Star. 15 summers have passed since your birth. You live in a city of 15,000 souls, surrounded by massive earthen pyramids that scrape the sky, plaza grounds where thousands gather, and thatched roof homes stretching to the horizon. But something is shifting in your world. The great sun, your divine ruler, grows older. The harvests have been poor. Whispers speak of warfare with neighboring settlements, of ritual demands to satisfy the gods, of young women chosen for purposes no one speaks aloud. Before we begin, friends, drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from, what time it is in your corner of the world. Are you tucked in bed or perhaps brewing late-night tea? So dim the lights, settle into your pillows, and let's walk together through Evening Star's final season. Because tonight you are her. You wake before dawn in your family's rectangular house. Its walls woven from prairie grass and river cane, the roof thatched so tightly that even the hardest rains barely penetrate. The air inside is thick with the smell of last night's cook fire, the embers still glowing faintly in the central hearth. Your mother sleeps beside you on woven reed mats, her breathing steady and deep. Your father is already gone. He left before the stars faded, heading to the fields beyond the city's wooden palisade walls, where maize, beans, and squash grow in neat rows stretching toward the horizon. You stretch, feeling the stiffness in your shoulders from yesterday's work. Grinding corn on the stone metate. Your hands are calloused, the skin rough from years of labor. But this is normal. Every woman's hands look like this. By the time she reaches your age, you rise quietly, careful not to wake your mother or your younger sister who sleeps curled like a small animal near the wall. The packed earth floor is cool beneath your bare feet. Outside, the sky is just beginning to lighten. Not quite purple, not quite gray, but something in between. The air is crisp with autumn's approach, carrying the scent of wood smoke from hundreds of household fires beginning to stir across the sprawling city. You can hear the distant sounds of Cahokia waking, dogs barking, babies crying, the low murmur of early rising voices. In the distance, the great monk's mound looms against the dawn sky, its massive earthen bulk rising in 4 terraces to a height of 100 feet. Atop it sits the great sun's temple, though from here you cannot see the details. Only its dark silhouette against the gradually brightening horizon. You walk to the community well, not a well in the way you might imagine it, but rather a deep pit lined with clay where groundwater collects, fed by the nearby creek that flows eventually into the great Mississippi River. Other women are already there, some filling clay pots, others gossiping in low voices that stop when you approach. You notice their glances, the way eyes slide away when you try to meet them. This has been happening more frequently in recent weeks, and you don't understand why. You've done nothing wrong that you know of. You've been obedient, worked hard, honored your family, made offerings at the appropriate times to the spirits of earth and sky. You fill your own pot, the water cold and clear, and hoist it onto your hip for the walk back. The pot is heavy. It holds perhaps 3 gallons, but they've been carrying water since you were 8 summers old, and your hip has developed a natural groove where the pot's curve rests. Other girls your age still struggle with the weight, sloshing water with each step, but you walk smoothly, the water barely rippling in the vessel. Your mother taught you well. This is important in Cahokia, where reputation matters almost as much as lineage. A clumsy girl makes a poor match. A skilled one might marry into a family of higher status, perhaps even a family whose men are part of the Great Sun's Council, or who maintain the ceremonial grounds. Walking back, you pass several clan compounds, extended families living in clusters of houses around shared courtyards. You belong to the bear clan, marked by the bear fetish your father wears around his neck, and the bear symbol carved above your door. Other clans have their own markers: deer, eagle, snake, each with their own histories and alliances. The social structure of Cahokia is intricate, a web of relationships and obligations that everyone must navigate carefully. Your mother is awake when you return, tending the fire, adding dried buffalo dung and small branches to bring the flames back to life. She doesn't look at you directly when you enter, but you sense tension in her shoulders, in the way she moves too deliberately, too carefully. Something is wrong. You set the water pot down near the hearth and wait, knowing better than to ask questions before your elders are ready to speak. This is another lesson learned young in Cahokia: patience, observation, silence until invited to speak. Your sister, Little Rabbit, is now awake too, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She's only 9 summers old, still more child than woman, though that will change soon enough. She smiles at you, innocent of whatever trouble darkens your mother's mood. You smile back but feel a weight settling in your chest, something undefined but present nonetheless. Your mother finally speaks, her voice careful and controlled. You will need to prepare yourself today. The priest's messengers make. She doesn't explain further, returning her attention to the fire, but her hands shake slightly as she arranges the wood. Priest's messengers. Your mind races through possibilities. Has someone accused your family of breaking taboo? Has your father failed to deliver the required tribute of maize to the Great Sun's granaries? Or is this something else, something connected to those strange looks at the well, the whispers that stop when you approach? You want to ask, but your mother's closed expression tells you that questions will receive no answers. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. In Cahokia, the priest's business is sacred mystery, not subject to the understanding of common people. The morning path. You help your mother prepare the morning meal, hominy made from maize kernels treated with lye, from wood ashes, served with dried venison and a handful of hickory nuts. The food is simple but adequate. Your family is not wealthy, but neither are you among the poorest, who sometimes go hungry in the lean months before harvest. Your father's position as a field supervisor grants certain privileges, including slightly larger rations from the communal stores. But today the food tastes like ash in your mouth. Even Little Rabbit, usually chattering through meals, seems to sense the tension and eats quietly. After the meal, you perform your usual tasks, but everything feels different. Weighted with unspoken dread, you sweep the house with a bundled grass broom. You mend a tear in your father's second tunic using a bone needle and thread made from plant fibers. You grind more corn on the matate, the rhythmic scraping, usually meditative, but today just monotonous. Your mother watches you periodically, her expression unreadable. Once, you think you see tears in her eyes, but she turns away before you can be certain. Midday comes with its fierce autumn sun. The heat makes the inside of the house stifling, so you step outside to work in the shade of the ramada, the open-sided shelter attached to your house where much of daily life occurs during warm months. Other women work at their own ramadas, and you notice again how they avoid looking in your direction. One woman, old corn mother from 3 houses away, catches your eye briefly, and the pity in her expression is unmistakable before she quickly looks away. Stray, pity. That's what you've been seeing, not contempt or anger, but pity. And somehow, that's worse than any other possibility you'd imagined. They come in the afternoon, when the sun has just begun its descent toward the western horizon. 3 men, all marked with the symbols of their priestly office, faces painted with red ochre and black charcoal in geometric patterns, deerskin cloaks decorated with shell beads that quick softly as they walk, copper ear spools catching the sunlight. One carries a ceremonial staff topped with a carved wooden falcon, symbol of the upper world and the great sun's divine authority. Your mother sees them first and makes a small sound, not quite a gasp, not quite a moan, that tells you everything you need to know. This is what she's been dreading all morning. This is why the women at the well looked at you with pity. You stand, your legs trembling but holding. Pride keeps your spine straight, your chin level. Whatever is about to happen, you will face it with dignity. This too is important. In Cahokia, how you meet your fate matters as much as the fate itself. The three priests stop at the edge of your ramada, and the one with the falcon staff speaks in the formal, archaic dialect used for ritual purposes, the words heavy with meaning layered over centuries. Evening Star, daughter of Running Deer and Willow Bends, bearer of Bear Clan lineage, you have been chosen. The great sun has seen you in his visions. The spirits of earth and sky have marked you as pure, as suitable for the honor that awaits. Honor. The word sits wrong in your stomach, curdling like spoiled milk. Behind you, your mother begins to weep quietly, and you understand then what honor they mean. You've heard the stories, whispered late at night, of girls chosen for the great rituals, of sacrifices made to ensure the sun continues its journey. The corn continues to grow, the city continues to prosper. You've always thought such stories were exaggerations, the fearful imaginings of old women. Now you know better. Your knees want to buckle, but you lock them rigid. The lead priest continues speaking, but you hear the words as if from a great distance, as if you're underwater and the sounds are distorted, reaching you only as muffled echoes. He speaks of the great sun's failing health, of poor harvests for 3 seasons, of enemies gathering beyond the borders, of the gods' displeasure that must be rectified through proper offerings. He speaks of the new mound being constructed even now, mound, Chishurar, a sacred place where the most important rituals will be performed to restore balance, to appease the spirits, to ensure Cahokia's continued supremacy over all the lands from the great river to the eastern hills. He speaks of honor, of eternal glory, of your name being remembered in songs and stories for generations unnumbered. You notice strange details with hyperclarity. A beetle crawling across the ground near the priest's foot, the way the shell beads on his cloak are arranged in a spiral pattern, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the exact pitch of your mother's crying, the way the afternoon breeze moves through the thatched roof, making it whisper like many voices. Your mind, unable to process the enormity of what's being said, fixates on these trivial things instead. But it's a defense mechanism, though you don't have words for that concept. You simply know that if you think too much about what chosen really means, you'll break apart into 1,000 pieces. And the priest finishes speaking and waits for your response. You know what you're supposed to say. Acceptance, gratitude, humble acknowledgement of the honor being bestowed. Your mouth opens, but no sound emerges. You try again, and this time your voice works, though it sounds thin and far away. I am honored by the great sun's wisdom. I accept this burden with willing heart. The lies taste bitter, but they're necessary lies. To refuse would bring shame on your family, might even endanger them. And besides, what would refusal accomplish? The priests don't ask, they inform. Your consent is ritual formality, not actual choice. The priests leave, but not before giving detailed instructions. You have 3 days, 3 days to prepare yourself spiritually and physically for the great honor ahead. You will undergo purification rites, fasting, sweat lodge ceremonies, ritual bathing, prayers to the spirits of the four directions. On the third day, at dawn, you will be brought to Mound Chishire, where the ceremonies will take place. The lead priest's eyes, when he looks at you, hold something you can't quite identify. Not cruelty exactly, but a kind of distant pity mixed with religious fervor, as if he genuinely believes what he's saying about honor and glory, as if he cannot comprehend that you might feel differently, as if your terror is simply spiritual weakness to be overcome through prayer. When they're gone, your mother collapses onto her knees, sobbing openly, now no longer trying to maintain composure. Little Rabbit, who has been hiding inside the house during the priest's visit, emerges and runs to you, wrapping her small arms around your waist. She doesn't fully understand what's happening, but she knows it's terrible, knows she's about to lose her sister. You stroke her hair mechanically, staring at nothing, your mind a blank white space where thoughts should be. Your father will be told when he returns from the fields. The entire neighborhood already knows. News spreads faster than fire in Cahokia, especially news of this nature. You think about running, just gathering a few things and fleeing into the wilderness, beyond the city, surviving somehow in the forests, hiding forever from the great sun's reach. But you know this is fantasy. Where would you go? How would you survive alone? And what would happen to your family if you ran? The priests would blame them for raising a coward, for failing to instill proper reverence. Your father might lose his position. Your family might be marked as dishonorable, shunned by their clan. Little Rabbit might never find a husband. No, running is impossible. You are trapped by duty, by love, by the intricate web of obligation that binds every person in this city. Your father returns as the sun touches the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and deep purple. You see him from a distance, walking through the gates in the wooden palisade that surrounds this section of the city. Even from here, you can tell he already knows. His usual steady gait is different, slower, heavier, like each step requires tremendous effort. When he reaches your ramada, he looks at you for a long moment, his weathered face working through emotions he hasn't shown since his own father died 3 winters ago. Then he does something unexpected. He pulls you into an embrace, holding you tight against his chest, and you can feel his heart hammering, feel the wetness of tears falling onto your hair. Hey, your father is not a demonstrative man. In your entire life, you can count on one hand the times he's embraced you like this. Cahokia's culture values stoic dignity, especially in men, especially in those who hold positions of responsibility. Public displays of emotion are seen as weakness, as lack of control. But here now, he holds you and weeps, and you realize that his grief is not just for losing you, but for his absolute powerlessness to protect you. He is a supervisor of field workers, a man of modest but real authority, yet against the priests and the great sun's will, he is nothing. Every day of his life has been spent building security for his family, creating a small sphere of safety in an often dangerous world. And now that safety has been revealed as illusion. I tried, he whispers against your hair, his voice broken. When I heard, I went to the administrative compound. I offered everything, our stored maize, my position, my own life in exchange. They laughed at me, Evening Star. The priests laughed and said, your life is already forfeit to greater purpose, that my life is nothing compared to the honor being shown to our family. He pulls back, holding your shoulders, looking into your eyes. If there was any way, any possible way, I would stop this. You know that, yes? You know I would trade places with you if the gods would allow it. Night falls, and your family sits together around the fire in silence, broken only by occasional sniffles from Little Rabbit and your mother's periodic keening. A low, rhythmic mourning sound that is traditional in your culture, the sound women make when death approaches. Your father stares into the flames, his jaw clenched so tight you can see the muscles jumping beneath the skin. No one eats, though your mother had prepared evening meal before the world fell apart this afternoon. The food sits untouched in clay bowls, cooling and congealing, irrelevant now. Neighbors come by in small groups to offer condolences, as if you've already died. And perhaps, in a way, you have the you that existed this morning, a girl concerned with daily tasks, who wondered about which boy might someday court her, who planned to learn her grandmother's special technique for weaving patterns into baskets. That girl is gone. What sits here now is something else, a sacrifice elect, a vessel for ritual purposes, a theological necessity rather than a human being with hopes and dreams. Old Corn Mother comes and places her gnarled hand on your head, chanting prayers in the old language, asking the spirits to receive you gently. A young mother from your clan brings her infant to be blessed by you, believing that your proximity to the sacred realm in these final days grants you power to transfer good fortune. You touch the baby's soft head mechanically, say the expected words, feel nothing. The night grows deeper. Stars wheel overhead in their eternal patterns, the same stars that shone when the first people emerged from the underworld, the same stars that will shine long after Cahokia is dust. This thought should be comforting, speaking to cycles and continuity in your small place in vast cosmic rhythms. Instead, it makes you angry. You don't want to be part of cosmic rhythms. You want to live. You want to marry and have children and grow old and complain about your aching joints and spoil your grandchildren. You want the ordinary things, the small things, the things that apparently matter less than appeasing gods you're not even sure exist. You lie on your sleeping mat, but sleep refuses to come. Little Rabbit has cried herself into exhausted slumber beside you, her small hands still clutching your tunic. Your mother and father lie on the other side of the fire, but you can tell from their breathing that they too are awake, staring into darkness, unable to find peace. The night sounds of Cahokia filter through the walls, distant drums from ceremonies at Monk's Mound, dogs barking, someone singing a drinking song at a neighbor's house until someone else yells at them to stop, the constant background chorus of insects and frogs from the nearby wetlands. Your mind races through everything, trying to find some escape, some overlooked possibility. Could you claim illness? No. The priests have their own healers who would examine you and declare any illness either curable or irrelevant. Could you claim pregnancy, which might grant temporary reprieve? No. You're virgin still, and even if you weren't, pregnancy would only delay, not prevent, your fate. Could your family flee together, abandoning everything to seek refuge with distant relations in other settlements? Perhaps, but where would you go that Cahokia's influence doesn't reach? The Great Sun's power extends over dozens of satellite communities, tributaries who send goods and labor in exchange for protection and access to Cahokia's markets and festivals. Running would make you all fugitives, always looking over shoulders, always vulnerable. You think about the stories you've heard of the afterlife, how the spirits of those who die properly ascend to the upper world, where the great sun dwells eternally, where there is no hunger or cold or pain, how those who die with honor are given special places in the celestial realm, becoming minor spirits themselves, able to hear prayers and grant small blessings. But these are just stories. These are just stories, aren't they? Stories told to make death less frightening, to give meaning to suffering, to make people accept what cannot be changed. You don't know if you believe them. You want to believe them, want to think that in 3 days you'll transition to something better, rather than simply ending. but belief and wanting to believe are different things. Dawn comes too soon and not soon enough. The first pale light seeping through the smoke hole finds you still awake, exhausted but unable to rest. This is your first day of purification, and the priest's assistants arrive early. Two young men training for priesthood themselves, their faces respectful. They inform you that you must come to the Purification Lodge near Monk's Mound. Your mother helps you dress in a special white deerskin garment that has been prepared for you, softer and finer than anything you've ever worn, bleached pure white using clay and sunlight. This dress is clearly expensive, showing status you've never possessed in life. The irony is not lost on you. The walk through Cahokia to the Purification Lodge feels surreal. People stop their morning routines to watch you pass. Some bow their heads in respect. Children stare with wide eyes until their parents shush them. You're already becoming something other than human in their eyes. A sacred object, a bridge between mortal and divine realms. The city looks different to you now. Every detail sharp and precious because you're seeing it through the lens of limited time. The way morning light gilds the thatched roofs, the smell of cook fires and damp earth, the sound of someone laughing, the mundane beauty of ordinary moments that will continue after you're gone. The Purification Lodge is a special structure near the base of Monk's Mound, used only for the most important religious preparations. It's larger than a typical house, with walls decorated with red ochre paintings depicting scenes from creation mythology, the emergence from the underworld, the separation of earth and sky, the birth of morning star and evening star. Yes, the deity for whom you were named, your parents having consulted an oracle who declared your birth auspicious. Inside, a large fire pit is already burning, stones heating within it. There are 6 other girls already there, ranging in age from perhaps 12 to 17 summers. They all wear the same white deerskin dresses. Their faces show the same mix of terror and forced acceptance. You are not alone in your fate. This should be comforting. It is not Pigeon Lodge. An elderly priestess takes charge. Her face is so weathered and wrinkled that guessing her age is impossible, her voice crackling like dry leaves. She explains what the next 3 days will entail. First, the sweat lodge ceremony. You will sit in the intense heat as water is poured over the hot stones, creating steam that will purify your bodies and spirits. You will sweat out all impurities, all doubts, all attachments to the earthly realm. Then you will fast. No solid food, only a special herbal tea made from plants whose names you don't recognize. Then there will be ritual bathing in the creek at dawn and dusk. There will be prayers, chants, teachings about the honor you're receiving and the cosmic importance of your sacrifice. The first sweat lodge session is nearly unbearable. The 7 of you, plus the elderly priestess, crowd into the small enclosed space. When water hits the heated stones, steam explodes upward in billowing clouds, the temperature instantly becoming suffocating. You can barely breathe, the air so hot it sears your throat and lungs. Sweat pours from every pore, soaking the white dress until it clings to your skin transparently. Your head swims, dizzy from heat and lack of sleep. The girl next to you, younger, perhaps 13 summers, begins to whimper. The priestess speaks in a monotonous chant about purification and transcendence. But her words blur into meaningless sounds behind the roaring in your ears. You endure because you have no choice. When you finally emerge from the sweat lodge, the cool outside air feels like a blessing, the most delicious sensation you've ever experienced. You gulp it in, legs trembling, barely able to stand. The other girls look similarly undone, their faces flushed bright red, hair plastered to skulls with sweat. The priestess seems unaffected, her ancient body apparently immune to what nearly destroyed you. She nods with satisfaction. Good. The first cleansing is complete. You have begun your journey toward the sacred. You want to argue that you haven't journeyed anywhere except toward heat exhaustion, but you say nothing. Silence has become your default response to everything. The remainder of the first day passes in a haze of discomfort. The herbal tea tastes bitter and earthy, coating your tongue with an unpleasant film, but the priestess insists you drink it regularly. It cleanses from within, she explains. It prepares your body to receive the divine. By afternoon, your stomach cramps with hunger, your body confused because you're consuming liquid but receiving no sustenance. The other girls seem to be suffering similarly. You can hear their stomachs growling during the afternoon prayer session where you all sit in a circle while the priestess instructs you about the cosmology of Cahokia's religion. She speaks of the three worlds, the upper world where the great sun and the divine beings dwell, where sky spirits fly and morning star rises, the middle world where humans and animals live, where chaos and order are in constant balance, and the lower world beneath the earth and waters, where powerful but dangerous spirits reside, where the underwater panther Penner lurks. She explains that you, as sacrifices, will serve as bridges between these worlds. Your deaths will not be endings but transformations, your spirits becoming messengers who can carry the great sun's prayers directly to the highest powers. Your blood soaking into the earth of Mound, Chisharar will sanctify that place forever, making it a permanent portal between realms. You try to find comfort in these teachings, try to believe that your death will have cosmic significance. But your cramping stomach and throbbing head make it difficult to focus on celestial realms when your earthly body is screaming for food and rest. You notice the same struggle in the other girls' faces, the attempt to look spiritually elevated while dealing with very physical suffering. One girl, older than you by perhaps 2 summers, with a distinctive scar across her left cheek, catches your eye and gives you the smallest, saddest smile. A moment of human connection amid the theological abstractions. You don't know her name, but in that moment she becomes something like a friend. Evening brings the ritual bathing. The 7 of you are led to a secluded bend in the creek that feeds into the Mississippi River. The water is cold. Autumn has turned the temperatures enough that the creek holds the chill of coming winter. You wade in together, the white dresses becoming transparent again as water soaks through. The priestess and her 2 female assistants watch from the bank, chanting prayers in the old language. You're instructed to fully submerge 3 times, once for each world, washing away attachments to mortal existence. The first submersion shocks your system, the cold water, a brutal contrast to the day's sweat lodge heat. You come up gasping, every nerve awakened. The second submersion, you're slightly more prepared, but your fingers are already going numb. By the third submersion, your whole body is trembling violently, teeth chattering so hard you bite your tongue accidentally, tasting blood. But the priestess nods with approval. Excellent. The spirits see your dedication. They see that you do not shy from discomfort in service of the sacred. Back at the lodge, you're given dry dresses, identical white deerskin, ceremonially clean, and allowed to sit by the fire to warm yourselves while more herbal tea is distributed. Well, as darkness falls, the priestess announces that tonight you will sleep in the purification lodge rather than returning to your families. You have already begun your separation from the middle world, she explains. To return to your families would muddy the purification, create conflicting attachments. From this point forward, your existence is dedicated solely to spiritual preparation. This means you won't see your mother, father, or little rabbit again, except perhaps at a distance during the final ceremony. This realization hits harder than the cold water did. You're not just dying in 3 days. You've already lost your family, lost the comfort of their presence during your final hours. Night in the Purification Lodge is restless. 7 girls lie on sleeping mats arranged in a circle around the central fire, the elderly priestess sleeping near the entrance on her own mat, snoring softly in a way that would be comical in other circumstances. You can hear the other girls breathing. Some cry quietly into their hands, trying to muffle the sounds. Others lie silently, but you can tell from the quality of their breathing that they're awake, staring into darkness just as you are. One girl near you whispers so quietly you almost miss it. "What is your name?" You whisper back, "Evening Star." She replies, "I am Singing Water. I wish we had met before this. I think we might have been friends." The conversation is risky. The priestess has forbidden unnecessary talking, insisting that silence aids spiritual focus. But the need for human connection overpowers caution. Another girl whispers her name, Cornflower. Then another, Little Deer. Around the circle, each girl names herself, a quiet rebellion against being reduced to anonymous sacrifices. You learn that Singing Water is from a satellite village, 2 days' walk to the south. Little Deer's father is a copper worker at the artisan compound. Cornflower's mother died giving birth to her, and she was raised by her grandmother. These whispered fragments of personal history, shared in darkness, make you real to each other. Not just theological necessities, but individual humans with stories, families. The girl with the scar. You learn her name is Bright Dawn. Whispers that she had a sweetheart, a young man training to be a warrior. "We were going to marry next summer," she says, her voice breaking. "He came to the Purification Lodge fence this afternoon, but the assistants drove him away. I could hear him shouting my name, saying he would find a way to stop this. But there is no way, is there? No one answers because there's no answer to give. You all know the truth. You're as good as dead already. You all know the truth. You're as good as dead already." Ghosts walking through final rituals before returning to whatever waits beyond life. The fire crackles, sparks rising toward the smoke hole, carrying your whispered names up into the uncaring night. The second day dawns with the same routine, sweat lodge at sunrise, even more brutal than the first because your body is weakened from fasting and lack of real sleep. The herbal tea is your only sustenance, and by now your body has stopped even craving solid food. The hunger has transformed into a constant dull ache and lightheadedness that makes the world seem slightly unreal, dreamlike. This might be part of the intention, you realize. The fasting isn't just physical purification, it's altering your mental state, making you more suggestible, more accepting, less able to hold onto the sharp edges of will that might lead to resistance, Today's teachings focus on the specific ritual that awaits you. The priestess explains that on the morning of the 3rd day, at dawn, you will be led to Mount Chishuar. The great sun himself will preside over the ceremony, the highest honor. Each of you will be laid on a bed of carefully arranged shells, thousands of shells brought from the distant seas, white and precious, forming the shape of a bird in flight, which represents the spirit's journey to the upper world. The mound itself is built over the bodies of other sacrifices from recent ceremonies, each layer adding to its sacred power. You will join them, becoming part of the structure itself, your bones and blood, literally building the sacred geography of Cahokia. You ask, your voice hoarse from disuse and dry throat, the question that's been haunting you: how? How will we die? The priestess regards you with something like kindness, genuine kindness, not the performative pity you've encountered elsewhere. Quickly, she says, "The priests are experienced. You will drink a preparation that will make you sleepy, peaceful. You will lie down on the shell beds. And then you will simply continue sleeping, moving from this world to the next. without pain, without fear. I promise you this, it will not hurt. You want to believe her. You don't entirely succeed, but the want is there. The afternoon of the second day, something unexpected happens. A commotion outside the Purification Lodge draws everyone's attention, raised voices, scuffling sounds. The elderly priestess rises with surprising agility for her age and goes to investigate, leaving the 7 of you alone for the first time since entering the lodge. Through the walls, you can hear a young man's voice, desperate and furious. I demand to see her. Bright dawn. Let me speak with her. You cannot do this. I will go to the grayer sun himself. I will. The sound of a blow cutting off his words, then dragging sounds, then silence. Bright dawn has gone completely white, tears streaming down her face. Her hands press against her mouth as if to hold back screams. She's recognized the voice, her sweetheart, the warrior in training who refused to accept her fate. One of the other girls, little dear, moves to sit beside her, putting an arm around her shoulders. No one speaks. What is there to say? The young warrior's futile attempt changes nothing except to add another layer of grief. Bright dawn will die knowing that someone loved her enough to try the impossible, which is perhaps a comfort and certainly a torture. When the priestess returns, she says nothing about the incident, resuming the afternoon instruction as if nothing occurred. But her eyes, when they fall on Bright Dawn, hold a deeper sadness than before. She's not a monster, you realize. She's a true believer who genuinely thinks what's happening is necessary and even beautiful in cosmic terms. But she's also old enough and experienced enough to recognize the human tragedy within the theological necessity. She can hold both truths at once, that the sacrifice is sacred and required, and that it's also the violent destruction of young lives. This doesn't make her better or worse, just more complex than you'd initially thought. Monsters are simpler than this, more honest in their cruelty. The priestess's sincere belief that she's helping you toward something greater might be the most devastating thing of all. The second night brings fevered dreams during fitful sleep, or perhaps visions, as the priestess would call them. The herbal tea contains something that opens doorways in the mind. You're certain of this now. You dream of flying over Cahokia, seeing the entire city laid out below like a map, the great pyramids, the plazas, the residential areas spreading in neat grids, the palisade walls, the agricultural fields beyond, the Mississippi River curving in great oxblows through the bottomlands. You see the city as it was in grandparents' time, smaller. Then you see it as it will be in grandchildren's time. But wait, you'll have no grandchildren. This thought breaks the dream's spell momentarily. Then you're beneath the earth, inside Mount Chishard itself. And you can see the layers of burials already there. Bodies arranged in patterns, skeletons intertwined, the earth dark and rich with their decomposition. You understand suddenly that the mound is alive in its own way, fed by sacrifice, growing layer by layer like a tree adding rings. You see the shells, thousands upon thousands of shells, white and gleaming even in the darkness, shaped like birds, like the falcon that represents the upper world, like the path spirits take towards sun. And you see yourself lying among them, peaceful, eyes closed, becoming part of the pattern. You wake with a start, heart racing, to find pre-dawn gray light filtering through the smoke hole. Around you, the other girls are also stirring, some crying out softly from their own dreams or visions. This is the third day, your last day. The realization settles over you with strange calm. The fear you've carried for 2 days has transformed into something else. Not acceptance, exactly, but a kind of hollow resignation. You're too tired, too weak, too altered by fasting and ritual to maintain sharp terror anymore. Your body has already begun letting go, preparing itself for what comes. This too might be intentional, you think. The 3-day preparation isn't just spiritual theater, it's psychological and physical conditioning to make you compliant when the moment arrives. The final sweat lodge session is brief. The priestess explains that you must reserve some strength for the ceremony ahead. The ritual bathing in the creek is similarly shortened, though the water feels even colder than before, or perhaps your body simply has no warmth left to lose. When you emerge, your lips are blue and you can't stop shaking. Back at the lodge, the priestess and her assistants do something new. They begin to prepare you for the ceremony with meticulous attention to appearance. Your hair is brushed until it shines, then adorned with small shell beads woven into braids. Red ochre paint is applied to your cheeks in careful geometric patterns. A necklace of shell beads is placed around your neck, simple but beautiful, more valuable than anything you've worn in life. The other girls receive similar treatment, each becoming more than she was, elevated from common girl to sacred object through the magic of ritual adornment. You look at each other and barely recognize yourselves. Bright Dawn, with her scarred cheek, somehow looks regal with the dot paint patterns drawing attention to her cheekbones rather than her scar. Singing Water, so young, looks even younger and heartbreakingly innocent with shell beads in her dark hair. Little Deer, Cornflower, the others, each transformed into something like priestesses themselves, beautiful and terrible, already more spirit than flesh. The priestess offers you all one final meal. Not solid food, but a thick preparation, almost porridge-like, made from ground maize and something else, something bitter underneath the corn taste. This will make you sleepy, she explains gently. It will make the transition easier. Drink it all, children. Don't be afraid. One by one, you drink from the clay cups she offers. The taste is awful, but you force it down, knowing this is the sedative that will ease your death. Bright Dawn drinks hers in one long gulp, as if eager to enter the promised peace. You sip yours more slowly, each swallow a tiny act of resistance, holding on to consciousness for as many seconds as you can steal before the drug takes you. The sedative works quickly. Within minutes, you feel a pleasant warmth spreading through your limbs, a softness at the edges of your vision, a sudden lack of concern about anything. The fear that's been your constant companion for 3 days simply evaporates like dew in morning sun. You look around at the other girls and see them experiencing the same thing. Tense shoulders relaxing, tears drying, small smiles appearing on faces that moments before held only dread. Singing Water giggles, actually giggles, at something no one else can see. Little Deer leans against Cornflower, murmuring contentedly. The priestess watches with satisfaction. Good children, let it take you. Don't fight it. This is kindness, you see? The gods are merciful, merciful. The word floats through your drug-softened mind without gaining traction. Are gods merciful, who demand the deaths of girls to ensure good harvests? But the question loses urgency even as you think it. Everything is losing urgency, losing sharp edges, becoming soft and dreamlike, and not particularly important. When the priestess says it's time to go, you stand with the others, your movements slow and graceful, almost floating. Walking is effortless, as if the earth itself is carrying you. The morning sun is so beautiful. You think everything bathed in gold light. Have you ever really seen sunlight before? It's extraordinary. You want to tell someone about the sunlight's beauty, but the words won't quite form, drifting away before you can catch them. The procession from the Purification Lodge to Mound, Chisara, is short but feels eternal, stretched out like taffy in your altered perception of time. The path is lined with people. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of Cahokia's citizens have gathered to witness. They're silent, watching, some with faces showing reverence, others showing grief, others blank and unreadable. You look for your family in the crowd but can't find them, or perhaps you do find them but don't recognize them, or perhaps finding them doesn't matter anymore. The sedative has stolen your ability to care about things beyond the immediate moment, the warmth of sun on skin, the feeling of earth beneath feet, the presence of other girls walking beside you toward the mound that rises ahead like a brown mountain against blue sky. You reach the base of Mound T-Shirar. It's not as massive as Monk's Mound, but it's still substantial. A rectangular earthen platform rising perhaps 20 feet, its sides smooth and regular and constructed. A ramp leads up one side. At the top you can see figures waiting, priests in full ceremonial regalia, and in the center, you're seated on a raised platform, a figure that must be the great sun himself, though from this distance and through your drug-clouded vision, you can't make out details. Just the impression of someone important, someone divine, someone for whom you're about to die. The thought passes through your mind without weight, like a leaf floating on water. And the climb up the ramp should be difficult in your weakened state. But the sedative makes everything feel easy, effortless. Your legs move without conscious command. At the top you see it, the shell bed, exactly as the priestess described. Thousands of white shells arranged in intricate patterns on the mound's flat summit, forming the shape of a great bird with outstretched wings. Each wing must be 30 feet long. The shells are luminous in the morning sun, creating an almost blinding effect. It's beautiful, you think distantly. If you must die, at least it's in a beautiful place. 7 spots are prepared on the bird's body and wings, spaces where shells have been cleared away to reveal dark earth beneath. The great sun speaks. His voice is reedy, thin with age and illness. You can hear now why new sacrifices are needed, why the gods must be appeased. He's dying, and when the divine ruler dies, chaos threatens. The sacrifice will strengthen him, extend his life, stabilize his connection to the upper world. At least that's the theology. Whether it's true or just convenient justification for murder depends on beliefs you no longer have energy to examine. He says words about honor, about your names being remembered, about your souls ascending to positions of glory. His face swims in your vision, very old, gaunt eyes filmed with cataracts but burning with fanatic certainty. He believes. They all believe. Does that make it real or just a shared delusion? The question dissolves before you can grasp it. The priests guide each of you to your designated spot. You're placed on one of the bird's wings, the shells cool and smooth beneath your body as you're instructed to lie down. The sedative makes lying down feel wonderful, like sinking into the most comfortable bed imaginable, though you're actually lying on hard earth with shells pressing into your back. Bright Dawn is placed next to you. She turns her head, her eyes heavy-lidded and peaceful, and reaches out to take your hand. You squeeze back weakly. Around the bird pattern, you can see the other girls lying in their spots, singing Water, Little Deer, Cornflower, the others whose names you learned but now can't quite remember. Everyone is smiling slightly, the drug's gift of false peace. More figures are brought up the mound's ramp. You understand, dimly that this ceremony involves more than just your group. There are others, men carrying bundles that might be more bodies, or goods for burial, or both. The scale of the sacrifice is larger than you'd realized. You try to focus, to understand what you're seeing, but your mind won't cooperate. Everything is fragments, impressions, details floating disconnected from meaning. A copper-covered body being placed nearby, baskets of shells being poured out, chanting in the old language, the great sun's voice rising and falling in prayer or invocation. The sun's heat on your face. Bright Dawn's hand in yours, warm and real, the last human connection. The priestess who guided you these 3 days appears above you, blocking the sun, her ancient face looking down with genuine tenderness. Sleep now, evening star, she says softly. Your journey is complete. The spirits wait to receive you. You have been perfect in your service. She places something over your face, a cloth, soft and dark. The world goes dark, but you can still feel the earth beneath you, the shell's irregular pressure. Bright Dawn's hand, the warmth of sun filtering through cloth, your own heartbeat slowing, slowing, slowing. You hear chanting, drum beats, footsteps moving away. Then, even those sounds begin to fade, growing distant as if you're falling down a deep well, falling away from light and sound and sensation, falling into a darkness that's not frightening anymore, just quiet. So very quiet, they say, or rather archaeologists would say, 1,000 years in your future, when they excavate Mount Shishar and find your bones among the shells, that approximately 53 young women were buried here, most between the ages of 15 and 25, all showing signs of having been in good health before death, all carefully arranged in the bird pattern. They will speculate about the reasons: political consolidation through mass sacrifice, religious response to crisis, demonstration of the great sun's power, ritual killing associated with elite burial, or perhaps warfare casualties ritually interred. They will write academic papers debating whether you died willingly or under coercion, whether the sedative traces they find in bone marrow indicate humane death or just pharmaceutical-enabled murder. Okay. They will note the care with which the burials were arranged, the wealth of grave goods, shells from Gulf Coast, copper from Great Lakes, mica from Appalachians, showing Cahokia's vast trade networks. They will observe that some bodies show evidence of malnutrition or disease, while yours and your group's bones show no such signs. You were chosen specifically because you were healthy. Purvis bests. They will catalog every shell, every bead, every fragment of textile that survives. They will take measurements and run tests and create Sendi models. They will do everything except know you as a person, except understand the 3 days of terror and grief, except feel the weight of Bright Dawn's hand in yours as consciousness faded. But we know. We walked with you through those final days. We felt the cold creek water, tasted the bitter herbal tea, heard the whispered names in darkness, experienced the drug's false peace. We know you were Evening Star, daughter of Running Deer and Willow Bends, Bear Clan, 15 summers old, with calloused hands, and a sister named Little Rabbit, with dreams of learning basket weaving and maybe marrying a kind man and growing old enough to complain about aching joints. We know the archaeologist's theories and data points are footnotes to a life, not the life itself. You were real. You were human. You died too young, too soon, for reasons that seemed cosmically necessary to some and brutally convenient to others. And the only memorial that truly matters is this: you existed, you mattered, you are remembered, but let's not end there, in academic abstraction. Let's return to the moment, to your last thoughts before darkness took you completely. Beneath the cloth, in those final seconds of consciousness, what did you think? Perhaps nothing. The sedative was strong, designed specifically to prevent fear and pain in final moments. Perhaps you thought of Little Rabbit, hoping she would grow up well, marry well, live a full life you'd never see. Perhaps you thought of your mother's tears, your father's helpless rage, and felt grateful that at least your death might spare them some worse fate, some collective punishment if you'd refused or fled. Perhaps you thought of the stories you'd heard since childhood about the upper world, about the sky gods who dwell there, and you wondered if you'd see them soon. Or if you'd see nothing, become nothing, dissolve into the same earth that grew the corn your family ate. Perhaps you felt anger rise one last time, rage at the great sun, at the priests, at the entire system that treated girls as currency to purchase divine favor, at gods who demanded blood to be satisfied, at a world where religious conviction excuses murder. Perhaps you felt that anger, and then felt it fade as the drug pulled you deeper, robbing you even of righteous fury. Or perhaps, and this is what I hope for you, evening star, perhaps in those final moments the drug granted you a vision more beautiful than reality, a dream of flying with the falcon, soaring above Cahokia into impossibly blue sky, feeling sun warm on your face and wind rushing past, feeling free for the first time since the priests came to your door. Perhaps you flew higher and higher until the city became a pattern of brown mounds and green plazas far below, until even the great Mississippi River was just a silver ribbon, until the earth itself curved beneath you, and you understood yourself as part of something vast and beautiful and uncaring and eternal. Perhaps you felt no fear, only wonder, only the sedative smoothed release into that final sleep. I hope so. For all that was taken from you, I hope that at least, above ground, the ceremony continues for hours after your consciousness ends. The priests move methodically through their rituals, chanting prayers in the old language, burning sacred tobacco and cedar, making offerings of food and precious objects to accompany the dead into the afterlife. The great sun remains on his platform throughout, though attendants must support him. His strength is failing even as the sacrifice meant to restore it is completed. More bodies are brought, 4 young men, elaborately dressed, possibly retainers or servants being sent to serve in the afterlife. Their deaths are quicker, more violent, no sedative mercy for them. A man and woman, middle-aged, wearing copper ornaments, are buried near the bird's head. The full count will eventually reach over 50 bodies in this single mass burial. The crowd below watches in silence. Some pray, some weep, some watch with the blank faces of people who have seen this before and learned to feel nothing, protecting themselves from the horror through numbness. Your father is somewhere in that crowd, held upright by kinsmen because his legs won't support him anymore. Your mother collapsed hours ago and was carried home. Little Rabbit hides her face against a neighbor's shoulder, too young to fully comprehend that her sister is truly gone forever, old enough to understand something terrible has happened. The Bear Clan will mourn you appropriately, will hold the proper ceremonies, will speak your name for a time. But eventually, years from now, decades, you'll become a story, then a vague memory, then forgotten entirely except as one of the mound Chishurar sacrifices. As the sun reaches its zenith, the priests begin the burial process. Earth is brought in baskets, thousands of baskets carried by workers in a long line from the borrow pits, where they've excavated clay and soil. The earth is poured carefully over the shellbird pattern, gradually obscuring the white shells, gradually covering the bodies lying peacefully in their final positions. Bright dawn's hand still holds yours beneath the accumulating weight. The shells that cost so much in trade goods and labor, the bodies that cost so much in grief and trauma, all disappearing beneath brown earth. The mound grows higher, layer by layer, becoming monument and tomb simultaneously. This is how power makes itself visible. Through architectural ambition, built on human sacrifice, 3 days after your death, the warfare begins. This is not coincidence. The priests timed the sacrifice to precede the military campaign they knew was coming. Enemy forces from a rival chiefdom to the east have been gathering for weeks, emboldened by reports of the great sun's illness, sensing weakness, planning to strike at Cahokia's satellite villages and perhaps the city itself But now, with the great sacrifice completed and the mound sanctified, Cahokia's warriors march out with renewed spiritual power, carrying shields painted with bird symbols in your honor, chanting prayers that invoke your names alongside the names of ancient heroes and gods. You are already being transformed into mythology, your deaths reframed as strategic advantage. The battle is brutal. Warriors with stone-tipped clubs and atlatls face each other across a contested maize field, 20 miles from Cahokia's walls. Men die screaming, skulls crack, bodies fall into the crops they were fighting over. By evening, Cahokia has won. Their warriors were indeed strengthened by belief in the sacrifice's power, fighting with conviction that the spirits of 53 girls were watching, ensuring victory. The enemy retreats in disorder, leaving their dead behind. Cahokia's warriors return triumphant, carrying enemy scalps and captives who will themselves become sacrifices at smaller ceremonies throughout the coming months. The great sun, hearing of victory, seems to improve slightly, sitting up in his sick bed, eating a little food. The priests declare the sacrifice, point to both military victory and the great sun's recovery as proof that the gods accepted the offering. Your father hears the news of victory with hollow eyes. He doesn't care about military triumph. His daughter is dead. What does it matter if Cahokia's warriors won their battle? What does it matter if the great sun ate a meal? His child is in the ground, her body already decaying beneath tons of earth, and nothing, not victory, not divine approval, not cosmic significance, changes that fundamental, unbearable fact. He stops going to the fields. He sits in his house, staring at nothing. Your mother tries to tend to daily life, but keeps breaking down mid-task, overcome by waves of grief that leave her gasping. Little Rabbit won't sleep alone anymore, creeping into their bed each night, whimpering from nightmares about losing you. Weeks pass. The great sun's health continues to fluctuate, some days better, some days worse, but he lives through the autumn into winter, which the priests declare a success. Other satellite communities send delegations to Cahokia, bringing tribute and pledges of loyalty. Impressed or intimidated by the scale of the mound, Chishuar sacrifice. Word has spread throughout the entire Mississippi Valley. Cahokia's great son commanded 53 lives and received them without resistance. This is power. This is divine mandate made visible. Smaller chiefdoms recalculate their positions, deciding that rebellion isn't worth the risk when facing a leader who can mobilize such complete obedience, such total control over life and death. But beneath the political success, cracks are forming. Some families who lost daughters to the sacrifice are angry, not openly, never openly, but in whispered conversations behind closed doors, in the way they stop attending major ceremonies, in subtle acts of non-compliance with labor demands. The Bear Clan loses status because your father has stopped working, stopped participating in clan activities, become a shell of the man he was. Other clans whisper that the Bear Clan produced a weak man who cannot accept his daughter's honor properly. Your mother's sisters try to help, bringing food, caring for Little Rabbit, but they too are grieving and struggling. One of your cousins was also among the 53, a girl you'd known since childhood, played with, shared secrets with. The Bear Clan lost 2 daughters that day, not just one. Across the city, similar grief plays out in different ways. Bright Dawn's warrior sweetheart vanishes. Some say he fled into the wilderness to die alone, unable to bear a world without her. Little Deer's family holds proper mourning rites but never speaks of her afterward, as if mentioning her name causes too much pain. Singing Water's mother goes mad, claiming she can hear her daughter's voice in the wind, wandering the plazas at night, calling for her lost child. The priests declaring the woman's spirit touched and confining her to a special house where she can be cared for, which really means silenced, kept away from public view, where her visible grief might undermine the narrative of honorable willing sanction. Grief is acceptable only within approved boundaries. Excessive grief suggests doubt in the theological necessity. Doubt cannot be permitted to spread. Winter settles over Cahokia. The Mississippi freezes at its edges, though the main channel keeps flowing. Snow covers the mounds and plazas, turning the brown earthworks white and softening the city's angular geometry into gentler curves. Mound Chishire still being constructed, more earth being added in phases, building it higher over the months following your burial. Rises against gray winter skies, a dark bump in the snowy landscape. Beneath the snow and earth and shells, your bones lie undisturbed, frozen in the position they'll hold for centuries. Above ground, life continues because life always continues, even after unbearable loss. Little Rabbit begins to adjust, in the way children do. She still misses you terribly, still cries sometimes, but she's also 9 years old and capable of finding joy in small things. A new doll made from corn husks, fresh snow to play in, a honey treat from a generous neighbor. Your mother watches her daughter's resilience with mixed feelings, grateful that Little Rabbit isn't destroyed by grief, but also somehow hurt that the world keeps turning, that life keeps demanding engagement, that Little Rabbit can laugh again when you're barely 2 months in the ground. Your father remains broken. He's aged 10 years and 2 months, his face lined in gray, his eyes empty. He goes through motions, eating when forced, sleeping fitfully, sometimes walking aimlessly around the city, but there's no real person inhabiting that body anymore. Just automatic functions continuing while the essential self has withdrawn somewhere unreachable. The great sun dies 3 days after the winter solstice. Despite the sacrifice, despite the prayers and offerings and blood, his illness finally claims him. The priests scramble to reframe this. The sacrifice gave him 4 more months, they claim, 4 months to prepare succession, 4 months for the divine spirit to transfer properly to his son, who will become the new great son. The sacrifice was successful. He simply died at the appointed time chosen by the gods. Another massive ceremony is held. Another mound is begun for the great son's burial. And yes, more sacrifices are made. His wives, his closest retainers, servants to accompany him into the afterlife. The cycle continues. Death feeding architecture, architecture displaying power, power demanding more death. Your sacrifice bought 4 months and justified everything that came after. The priests are satisfied. The new great son is secure in his position. Cahokia endures. And you remain in the ground knowing none of this, caring about none of this. Simply being dead, spring arrives, bringing floods as it always does. The Mississippi rises, spilling into the bottomlands, creating temporary lakes and swamps across the floodplain. This is normal, expected. The floods bring fertile silt that makes Cahokia's agriculture possible, depositing rich black soil over the fields each year. But this spring, the flooding is worse than usual, lasting longer, covering more area. Fields that should be planted remain underwater through the critical planting season. The stored maize from previous years begins to run low. Hunger touches the city for the first time in a generation. People begin to whisper. Perhaps the sacrifice wasn't enough. Perhaps the gods remain displeased. Perhaps more offerings are required. Your family faces particular hardship. Your father hasn't worked in 6 months, producing no contribution to the clan's stores, earning no share of the communal harvests. The Bear clan's leadership discusses the problem. They cannot carry a non-productive member indefinitely, not when food is tight. Your mother understands the unspoken message. She must either get her husband working again or face expulsion from the clan, which would mean homelessness, begging, possible starvation. She tries everything, pleading, shaming, anger, gentleness, calling in a healer who performs soul recovery ceremonies meant to bring back spirits that have wandered away from the body. Nothing works. Your father sits and stares and occasionally weeps, but he cannot or will not return to functional life. Finally, late one night, your father walks out of the house and doesn't return. Your mother wakes at dawn to find him gone. Search parties look for 3 days, checking the fields, the woods, the riverbank, the plazas, everywhere he might have wandered. They find him on the morning of the 4th day, at the base of Mound Chisharar, lying in the mud from spring rains, dead. The healers who examine his body find no obvious cause, no wounds, no signs of illness or violence. He's simply as if he finally succeeded in willing his body to stop functioning now that his spirit had already departed 6 months earlier. Some whisper that he took a poison. Others say his heart simply gave out from grief. Your mother doesn't care which. She has now lost both husband and daughter. Little Rabbit has lost father and sister. The Bear Clan arranges a modest burial, the kind given to ordinary people, not the elaborate ceremony reserved for those who die with honor. He's placed in a simple grave in the clan cemetery, his body oriented toward the rising sun, according to tradition, and earth is piled over him. He wanted to die when you did. It simply took 6 months for his body to catch up with his will. With your father dead and buried, your mother must make impossible choices. She has Little Rabbit to feed and no resources. The Bear Clan provides minimal support, enough to barely survive, but with the clear expectation that she'll either remarry quickly or find some way to contribute productively. She's perhaps 35 summers old, still young enough to bear more children, but she's known as the woman who lost everything, and superstitious whispers follow her. Maybe she's cursed, maybe her family has offended the gods, maybe bad fortune is contagious. Men who might have considered courting a widow avoid her. Women who might have been friends keep their distance, not wanting to risk association with such obvious bad luck. Your mother makes a decision that splits her heart but saves her daughter's life. She gives Little Rabbit to her sister, your aunt, who has a stable marriage, resources, and room for another child. Little Rabbit cries and clings, not understanding why her mother is sending her away. But your mother is firm. You'll have enough to eat there, she says. You'll be safe. You'll grow up properly. What she doesn't say, I can't feed you. I can barely feed myself. If you stay with me, we'll both starve. Little Rabbit is taken to her aunt's compound, joining a household of cousins, becoming one more child in a crowded house. She'll grow up there, eventually marry, have children of her own, live a full normal life. But she'll always remember the sister who disappeared into a ceremony she didn't understand, the father who died of sadness, the mother who gave her away. Trauma shapes lives even when it doesn't end them. Your mother moves into the section of Cahokia reserved for widows, and unmarried women, those without male protection or clan support. It's a marginal existence, living in a small shared house with 3 other women in similar circumstances, taking whatever work is available, grinding corn for wealthier families, hauling water, weaving mats, processing hides. She survives, but just barely. On certain nights, she walks to Mound Chisharar and stands at its base, now rising 6 feet high, still growing. She knows you're in there somewhere, beneath all that earth. She talks to you sometimes, telling you about Little Rabbit, about your father's death, about her own struggles. She asks if you're happy in the upper world, if the priests were right about glory and honor. She receives no answers, of course. The mound is silent, keeping its dead to itself. Eventually, she stops coming. The pain is too much, and what's the point? You can't hear her anyway. Your bones and shells and nothing more, regardless of what theology claims. 5 years pass. The new great sun has consolidated his rule. Cahokia continues as the region's dominant power, its influence extending over satellite communities for hundreds of miles. Mound Chishirar is complete now, rising approximately 15 feet high, not the tallest mound in Cahokia, but significant and sacred because of what lies within it. The shell bird pattern with its 53 sacrifices has become legend, told and retold until the actual girls who died have been abstracted into mythological figures, perfect virgins who went willingly to their sacred duty, who smiled as they lay down on the shells, who sang hymns as they ascended to the upper world. The messy reality, the sedatives, the tears, the resistant fathers and destroyed families, has been edited from the official narrative. History gets simplified in the retelling, stripped of complicating details that might undermine power's preferred story. Little Rabbit is 14 now, the same age you were when chosen. She's engaged to a young man from the Deer clan, a match arranged by your aunt and uncle. She remembers you, but the memories have taken on a strange quality. She's not entirely sure anymore what's real memory versus what she's been told, what she actually experienced versus what she imagined later. She remembers playing with you, remembers your smile, remembers the day you disappeared into the purification lodge. But when she tries to recall your voice or the specifics of conversations, she finds only blankness. You're becoming a ghost to her, fading as she moves forward into her own life. This is natural and normal, and also a kind of death, this forgetting. You die twice. Once when your body stops, once when the last person who truly remembers you dies or forgets. Your mother is still alive, aged beyond her 40 summers by hardship and grief. She works in the widow's quarter, her hands gnarled with arthritis, her back bent from years of heavy labor. She rarely speaks of you. When Little Rabbit visits, infrequently because her aunt discourages it, wanting Little Rabbit to focus on her new family, your mother sometimes asks if Little Rabbit remembers her sister. Little Rabbit says yes, she remembers, and describes some vague, pleasant memories. Your mother nods and says nothing more. She knows the memories are fading, that you're disappearing from living consciousness even as your bones remain perfectly preserved beneath mound Chishirar's earth. She's accepted this, though acceptance doesn't mean the pain is gone. It just means she's learned to function around it, to live with a permanent wound that never quite heals, but no longer actively bleeds. She'll die in another 5 years. Nothing dramatic, just illness and exhaustion taking her, and be buried in the poor section of a clan cemetery in an unmarked grave that will erode and be forgotten within a generation. Decades pass. Cahokia reaches its peak population, perhaps 20,000 people living in the greater metropolitan area, making it larger than London at the same time. The city is a marvel, over 100 earthen mounds, vast plazas where thousands gather for ceremonies and market days, astronomical observatories where priests track sun and stars to maintain ritual calendar, residential districts with houses arranged in neat grids, workshop areas where artisans produce copper ornaments and shell beads and finely carved stone tools. Mound Chishir is just one mound among me now, no more visually prominent than dozens of others, though it retains its sacred significance. The priests still tell stories about the great sacrifice, though the details have become hazier with each generation's retelling. Little Rabbit has grown old. She's 50 now, a grandmother 4 times over, having lived a full and ordinary life. She barely thinks of you anymore, though sometimes, seeing a granddaughter approach 15 summers, she feels a vague unease she can't quite name. She knows she had a sister once who died young in some ceremony, but the specifics elude her. She never told her own children much about it. Why burden them with old sadness? But choose. They know they had an aunt who died before they were born, but she's purely abstract to them, a name without substance. Your mother died 25 years ago and was forgotten. Your father's grave has eroded away, leaving no marker. The Bear clan's genealogies mention you in passing. Evening Star, daughter of Running Deer, sacrificed in the year of the great sun's death, honored by the gods, but it's just one line among hundreds, recording facts without personality. Your bones lie 30 feet below where they started, not because you moved, but because Cahokia has continued building. The city grows upward through constant construction, new buildings replacing old, plazas being resurfaced with fresh earth, mounds being expanded. The ground level rises imperceptibly over decades. What was once surface is now buried. Archaeologists will eventually call this cultural stratigraphy, the layering of human activity over time. You're in a layer from Cahokia's middle period, surrounded above and below by artifacts and structures from different eras. Around you, broken pottery, discarded tools, the filled-in remains of houses and fire pits, the detritus of daily life, for generations who never knew you existed. You've become geology, your story compressed into a thin layer of soil containing bones and shells and the faint mineral shadows where organic materials once were. Another century passes, then another, then several more. Cahokia's power wanes for reasons archaeologists still debate. Climate change causing drought and failed harvests. Political instability as the rigid hierarchy proves unsustainable. Environmental degradation as forests are cleared for construction and fuel. Or perhaps all these factors interacting in complex ways. The population drops. First, families leave for satellite communities. Then, entire clans abandon the city. By the year Ichen Sembite Wushers CE, 300 years after your death, Cahokia is essentially empty, inhabited only by scattered families among the ruins of a civilization that once dominated the continent's interior. The great mounds remain, grass-covered and eroding, mysterious to the few indigenous peoples who pass through the area, who tell stories about the ancient ones who built these earthworks but don't remember the specific history, the names, the reasons. Europeans arrive eventually, bringing diseases that devastate native populations long before direct contact, bringing guns and horses and Christianity and concepts of property ownership that shatter remaining indigenous ways of life. The land where Cahokia stood is colonized, renamed, divided into farms. Settlers plow the fields around the mounds, occasionally finding artifacts, arrowheads, pottery sherds, copper ornaments, which they collect as curiosities without understanding their context. Some mounds are destroyed, leveled for farmland, excavated for fill dirt, or simply eroded by rain and time. Mound, Chishirar survives, though it's been worn down by 3 centuries of weather, now perhaps only 12 feet high instead of its original 15, covered in prairie grass and small trees. Through all this, Cahokia's decline, its abandonment, its forgetting, the arrival of new peoples, the complete transformation of the world above, your bones lie unchanged in their position, protected by the mound's mass. You know nothing of these changes, of course. You experienced only your 15 years of life and 3 days of terror. Then consciousness ended forever. But your bones persist, carrying information, your age at death, your health, your position in the shell pattern, the sedative traces in your marrow, the red ochre on your skull, the shells you were buried with. You're a data set waiting to be read, a question waiting to be asked, a story waiting to be reconstructed by people who won't exist for centuries after Cahokia falls, people using technologies unimaginable to those who killed you. Your death served Cahokia's politics for a moment. Your bones will eventually serve archaeological knowledge, teaching future humans about past humans, about power and sacrifice, and the costs of civilization. Neither purpose was your choice, but at least the second causes no additional suffering. The year is Ichenjilbite Loshish T, graduate students and professional archaeologists from Washington University in St. Louis and the Illinois State Museum are excavating Mound Chishirar. They've been working for weeks, carefully removing soil layer by layer, documenting everything, soil color changes, artifact distributions, disturbances from roots and rodents. Then they find it, the first shell. Then more shells. Then they realize they're uncovering a pattern, a massive bird shape made from thousands of marine shells. The excavation pace slows even further as they recognize they've found something extraordinary. Then the first skeleton. Then another. Then dozens. 53 bodies eventually, mostly young women, carefully arranged on the shell pattern. The excavators work with growing awe and horror as they document what they're seeing: mass sacrifice on a scale unprecedented in North American archaeology. They find you on a Tuesday afternoon in July. One of the graduate students, a young woman herself, perhaps 24 years old, writing her dissertation on Mississippian burial practices, carefully exposes your skull with dental tools and soft brushes, grain by grain removing soil that's lain over you for 900 years. She sees the red ochre staining, the shell beads positioned where your neck once was, the careful placement of your body. She photographs everything, draws everything, takes notes describing position, orientation, associated artifacts. She bags samples of soil from around your bones for later analysis. She's professional and meticulous, but she also feels something: recognition of your humanity, wonder at the preservation, sadness at your young age, anger at the social system that killed you. She doesn't know your name was Evening Star. She doesn't know about Little Rabbit, or your father's grief death, or your mother's marginal survival. But she knows you were approximately 15 years old, healthy, deliberately sacrificed. She knows enough to mourn you, even across 9 centuries. The excavation makes national news. Photographs of the shellbird pattern appear in newspapers and magazines. Academics debate the meaning. Was this warfare related? Political theater? The scholarly discourse abstracts you back into theory and data points, but some of the excavators maintain a personal connection. The young graduate student writes in her field notes: subject, RCT birdwing position, female, Point Sirwall, years old. I kept thinking about who she was, what she thought in her final moments. If she was scared, I hope it was quick. I hope she didn't suffer too much. 900 years separate us, but grief transcends time. Someone loved this girl. Someone mourned her. I find myself mourning her too. Her professor strikes this paragraph from the official report: too subjective, too emotional, not scientific. But the student keeps her original notes tucked in a folder with your photographs, a small memorial you'll never know about. Your bones now rest in climate-controlled storage at the Illinois State Archaeological Survey, carefully curated along with Bright Dawn's and the others' catalog number assigned, available for study by qualified researchers with proper permissions. You've been analyzed exhaustively. Isotope studies of your teeth reveal where you grew up locally, within 50 miles of Cahokia. Trace element analysis shows your diet was high in maize, with some meat and fish. Your bones show no signs of disease or malnutrition. Microscopic analysis of bone structure confirms you were approximately 15 when you died. Residue analysis found traces of datura or similar sedative alkaloid in your bone marrow, confirming the drugging. These studies have been published in peer-reviewed journals, presented at conferences, incorporated into museum exhibits about Cahokia's culture. You've contributed to human knowledge about the Mississippian period, about social complexity and inequality, about the costs populations pay for monumental architecture and hierarchical power. But here's what science can't tell, what you dreamed about before you were chosen. Whether you were funny or serious, bold or cautious, what your voice sounded like when you laughed, how it felt to hold your sister's hand, the specific content of the whispered conversations in the Purification Lodge. Darkness. Whether the drug vision of flying was comforting or you felt only terror beneath the chemical peace. These things are lost, irretrievable, gone with your consciousness 9 centuries ago. We can reconstruct facts, your age, health, diet, cause of death, social context, but we can't recover you as a person, can't restore the inner life that made you more than a biological machine. This is history's tragedy and limitation. We know much about past peoples, but can never truly know individual past persons. You were real, you mattered, you experienced joy and fear and love and pain. And now you're bones in a box in a basement, teaching us about power's brutality while your actual self remains forever inaccessible. So we end where we began, with you, Evening Star, 15 years old, living your last days in autumn of Ichenling Usher CE at Cahokia. We walked with you through terror and grief and drug-induced peace. We watched consequences ripple through your family and community. We saw memory fade and bones endure. We witnessed excavation and analysis transform you from person to data. And now, having traveled with you from life, through death, through forgetting, through rediscovery, we let you rest. The Cahokia civilization that killed you is dust. The great sun you died for is forgotten. The priests who declared your sacrifice necessary are themselves reduced to skeletal remains in other burials. But you persist, not in consciousness, not in memory, but in material evidence that testifies to your existence and your stolen potential. You were Evening Star, you were real, you were human, and you deserved better than this. May your bones rest in peace. May your story serve as warning about power's cost. May those who learn about you remember that data points were once living, dreaming, hoping people. That's the only memorial we can offer you now, recognition, across the unbridgeable distance of 9 centuries, that you mattered then and you matter still, so dim the lights now. Let Evening Star's story settle into your mind as you drift towards sleep. 900 years separate us from her final breath, yet her bones still rest in careful storage, testifying to a life cut short by power's hunger. Cahokia's pyramids still stand, grass-covered and ancient, monuments to both human achievement and human cost. Okay, you're safe in your bed tonight, in a world where such sacrifices seem unthinkable. Though power still demands its tributes in different forms, doesn't it? Rest now, knowing her story is remembered, her humanity acknowledged across the centuries. Sleep well,